Good day. I welcome everyone who has joined us today. My name is Olga Tamanova, and I'm happy to welcome you in the Media Center Ukraine Ukrinform today. This is the 11th year of the war. This is already the 848th day since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of Russian aggressor to our land. And today we will be speaking with you about the complicated and hard topic for all of us. We'll be speaking about our prisoners of war, about our defenders in captivity. Today we'll devote this air to the POW Marines from the 36th Brigade. Let me remind all of you that the 36th Marine Brigade, named after the Rear Admiral Mikhailo Belinsky, was one of the units which was defending Mariupol till the very end. In April-May 2022, about 1,300 servicemen of the unit were captured, and according to information from their families, the detention of about 800 of them has been confirmed by the International Committee of the Red Cross. So today we have the relatives and our NGOs, which are now providing the active work to liberate our defenders from captivity. And we understand that all of them have the same opinion, that our POWs almost don't have any resource left to go on. And their health state, we understand, for the third year already has really deteriorated. And we can see that also looking at those defenders who were liberated from the captivity, who managed to come back home, we see what's their state when they are coming back, and that's really horrible. So I'd like to introduce you our speakers today. Today we have Milana Kompaniets, mother of Yury Gulchuk, a POW from the 36th Marine Brigade. Hanna Bey, wife of Pavel Bey, a POW, a senior sailor of the 501st Separate Battalion of the 36th Marine Brigade. Yulia Petryk, wife of Mykyta Petryk, a POW, a major of the 36th Marine Brigade. We also have Tetyana Katrychenko, executive director of the Media Initiative for Human Rights, and Yulia Gulchuk, the lawyer coordinator on the work with families. I welcome you here. Thank you for joining us here today. Milana, I would like to start this conversation with you. Undoubtedly, I would like to hear what you know. Do we have any information from there? What is taking place? And maybe you are in touch with international organizations, or maybe in any other way you are getting information about what is taking place with your son, where he is, and we'll speak altogether about the situation with the 36th Marine Brigade. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to share my knowledge and ideas about this situation. My son, Yury Sergeyevich Gulchuk, the Marine of the 36th Separate Marine Brigade, named after Rear Admiral Mikhailo Belinsky, is a student. He went after the second year. He did not leave his tuition. He just took his documents. He said that translator is not the work for the real job, for a real man. He was a translator. He was studying at the Chinese philology. He knows Chinese rather well. He knows English, and it seems insufficient for him. He went to the army and said that the army is the best thing what happened with him in his life. He left in autumn 2021. He got to the war when he was totally green, as the conscript. He did not tell me about that, but he said that after the beginning of the war he signed the contract. He did not warn me about that. The situation, as of me, was interesting about the feelings of the person after the high educational institution in the army. So in the army he felt wonderful. He said that this is what he was searching for during his whole life. And the same happened in February, in March, until I was in touch with him. And that stopped on the 4th of April. After that, the next piece of information about him was a picture, and no one recognized him but me. I was the only one who recognized him. That was a totally different person, that even his grandmother did not recognize him. He's changed so much internally. He saw and heard in captivity something that really changed him forever, because all of the pictures, there was one more picture after that, in the beginning of 2023, there was a short video from the detention center in Ryazsk, and you could recognize him on the video. After that, there was a long period, a year, without any information at all. In January 2024, some of the POWs were exchanged from the same room where he was kept, and I communicated with him, and I got to know about some things, but maybe I shouldn't have known them as a mother. Maybe I shouldn't have known about that. But unfortunately, I'm a medic myself. I understand what all of those symptoms mean, what the guys told about. They are extremely exhausted, they are pathologically skinny. They give them really not enough food. I was looking through, when I was getting ready to this meeting, I was looking through my notes, and I saw what they said, that about 3 or 4 spoons of porridge, half a cup of tea, because 1 cup is for 2 people, and 2 thin slices of bread. That's it about the food. As for proteins, nobody is even speaking about that. So we can see that they are given just 1 cup of water for 8 people. You just cannot take water when you want. There are only carbohydrates. As a medic, I understand that this protein and calorie exhaustion and liquid exhaustion can quickly lead to fatal consequences. Not only fatal that the person just instantly dies, no. The person first is losing, well, obviously losing fat layer at the different parts of the body. The 3rd stage of dystrophy is the loss of the fat layer throughout the body. But on the picture of Roman Horelik, we saw them in this state. All of the pictures, in fact, were taken after they lost the fat. That's what we saw. Mordovia, part of Russia, Danske, Taganrog are the most horrible places of detention. Why are they the most horrible? Besides the conditions, the horrible conditions, as you know what they are always standing. No, really, for 18 hours a day they have to stand. That's too much for a person. And they stand without moving, so the leg muscles don't work. What does it lead to? That, unfortunately, their legs are all the time swollen. Without movement from 6 a.m. till 10 to 11 p.m. they have to stand. After that we wrote complaints. There were multiple complaints from different organizations, and we got some of the outcomes. The guys said that in the end of autumn there was a very important commission, and they were even forgotten about. They did not even follow them anymore, whether they were standing or not. So everything was made proper. They even gave them chicken and a bit of fish. But when they came back, we understood that our letters worked. To the committee at the President of Russia, some of the complaints for the impossible conditions. Our letters were working, but what's weird that nothing worked for the RCRC. We wrote so much, whatever we did, it never worked for the RCRC. Maybe you do remember the report of the UN reporter on tortures, Miss Jill Edwards, who questioned our liberated POWs. Her report was published, if I'm not mistaken, on the 3rd of March, and those who would like can read it. As for the Istanbul Protocol on torture, 16 types of tortures were inflicted upon our POWs. Out of 16, 14 were used against POWs. Whatever they can do. Standing without movements is also considered to be a torture, because it leads to the opening of the trophy ulcers on the legs. They are rotting, and they have lots of problems with trophies on the legs. Of course, they are beaten. And as for the medical care, God forbid you say that something is wrong with you, that something is aching. If you have a toothache, they either take them out or beat you until they fall out. No one it takes you to the dentist, and if you are complaining for any pain, you are treated by shocker only. Is that enough? Is it still painful? Then you get another dosage of shocker. I don't know what was done by my son, but after that, well, he is a person, he's never giving up. That is why I'm afraid of him, for him. He is not giving up till the last moment. He was beaten up until he was paralyzed, until his legs were paralyzed. He was bitten into groin by a shocker so hard. Well, of course, he lost his consciousness, and then he did not feel his legs. I don't know whether he can move legs now. I hope that yes, because theoretically it is possible, but no one told me about that. Another trauma which emerged in the captivity. Why did I tell that he is the philologist, a student? Because the language is his way of life. He's a very verbal person. He is communicating all the time. So in captivity he does not communicate. He lost the opportunity to speak. After another beating, he was without consciousness for 4 hours. Then he just showed with a gesture that he is alive. He showed with his bigger thumbs that he is okay. After that, he lost his opportunity to speak. And when the guys were exchanged, I asked him, wasn't he conversing anymore? Well, he is trying, they said, but he fails. And I made a conclusion out of that maybe it's either a microstroke or any other damage of nervous system because of the beating. Well, unfortunately, I'm a medic, and I understand it. The conclusion is the conditions of their stay are impossible, and if we transpose that onto what we know about the consequences of this starvation, I know that I'm out of time. I need 1 more minute, please. The thing is that if you pay attention to the fates of the guys who are exchanged, there are already people who died because of heart attacks. Why heart attacks? Because there was such a research in 1946 and 45 of the last century in the US. 36 healthy men did not eat enough during 6 months. And according to the results of this research, there is a book, a biology of human starvation and malnutrition, 2 volumes, which are considered a very substantial research. So the main consequences because of the malnutrition is, in fact, the heart failure, because the heart muscle is becoming thinner and thinner. The frequency of heart when the person is moving quickly and actively after the captivity, the heart fails. The heart contractions don't let him survive. So after that, the day before yesterday at the Committee on the Veterans, I submitted a request from our brigade and other POWs, the next request. We need to introduce another category of POWs of the long term of detention. And for them, we need totally different medical research, totally different conditions for rehabilitation and the terms for rehabilitation. Because this month, while they are in a hospital, is totally not enough. This month, maybe, it needs to be added. You can only add a bit of fat, but not muscles. But the heart muscle, as well as any other muscles, are being developed really slowly. So for about a year, they cannot not only take serious loads, they have to dose them as if they had heart attack. We need to use the special protocol for them, how to save the heart muscle. Because let me repeat, more than one person, and I yesterday communicated with the head of the NGO, one of the Azovstal NGOs, Miss Latanska, and she listed how many people from the NGO after they exchanged still died because of the heart failure. I would be really grateful for any questions. That's it from me. Thank you so much, Milana. Hanna, please, the floor is yours now. Could you share your story? What do you know about your husband, Pavlo? What information you have now? As of now, I have the opportunity to write letters to my husband, and in his letters, phrase by phrase, he's writing about his health. As of now, maybe he even has already the varicose veins. He says the color is kind of the carrot red. The capillaries have been broke and are becoming blue. Varicose veins is a serious disease, and without medical care it can lead to amputation or even death. Besides that, he told me that he has issues with memory and with his right hand. And again, let me quote, I noticed I have issues with memory, I think just later with the consequences, and problem with the right arm, it is not working properly. In another letter he added, I'm sorry, he added that his right hand is affected and two fingers do not bend. I'd like to add that my husband is 1 meter 88 centimeters and he had an average weight of 95 before captivity. In the beginning of May, he informed me that as of now his weight was 60 kilos. In 2 years, he lost approximately 35 kilos. I think that it is a critical point of dystrophy for my husband and in fact for any POW. And please pay attention that almost all of the Marines are brought to the colony in Mordovsk, and the conditions are the worst. The bodies of tortured POWs are brought from that colony, most of all. They need to be saved. We are free people. We can take care about ourselves. We can get to the doctor whenever we want to. I ask all of the presentees and all of the people who take part in the exchanges, please find the solution how to bring our guys back home as soon as possible. Their resources are almost at the brink between life and death. If we don't do anything, we'll get just more tortured bodies. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Hanna. Hanna, do you have any information about the attitude to the Marines, that it is different than the attitude to anybody else? Did you get any information like that? Out of the words of many relatives and liberated guys, the Marines have one of the cruelest, the most cruel attitude. My husband describes that without details. I think that he wants to, in fact, take care of me, and he wouldn't be allowed to write that. But according to the words of the relatives and liberated guys, it is like that. The attitude towards the Marines is much worse. Yulia, the floor is yours. What do we know about the state of your husband? Hello, I'm the head of the NGO, the families of the officers of the 36th Marine Brigade. I represented the families of the POWs of Mariupol city. Our relatives, since the first days of the full-scale invasion, were at the combat positions, keeping defense of the Mariupol city. During the combat on the 12th of April 2022, they got into captivity. We know the official statement, which was declared by the President of Ukraine on the 27th of March 2023. Let me quote, I am communicating with them every day. I understand everything. We'll definitely come back. If you feel that you need to leave and you need that this is the right decision and that you can survive, do that. But I understand how it can look for the military. They answered that there are wounded people and injured and we will not leave them. We will not leave the bodies. End of quote. Our guys, only after the end of the ammunition, emphasize not food, not water, not medicine, but ammunition, decided to break through, and all of the wounded were taken with them. They had the expectation, the hope, that someone would be lucky to get to the governmentally controlled area, but unfortunately the majority of them were captured. So our relatives, as of today, for more than 2 years, are in captivity now. So we claim for the negotiation groups to reformulate the lists for exchange considering the time limits of getting captured. Please pay attention to those who are in captivity for the longest time and the units which have the smallest percentage of the exchanged POWs. We, the families of the POWs, are affected because we don't know where our relatives are, what's their state. The world has the scariest sound, the sound of silence, the silence of sons, husbands, brothers. We don't have any connection with our relatives since the moment when they got captured. According to the Geneva Conventions, we have the right for writing letters, but we cannot use this right. So all the information which we have about them is got from their brothers in arms who already came back home. in spite of the fact that our relatives are confirmed by ICRC, we don't have any information about their location, their health state, and even the controlling authority of ICRC does not cooperate with the families, but gives the requests of ICRC to Ukraine, and we don't give any answer as well, a response as well. We are not sure that they're still alive, because there are cases that the bodies confirmed by ICRC still were brought back dead. They are for 2 years in the captivity, in the horrible conditions. They are starving, they are being tortured and beaten. They are living through sexual violence and moral humiliation. When the Russian POWs have the right for phones calls and video calls, they are even given candies. But we can see the state of our guys coming back. But you can see only exhaustion and that they lost their weight. But we know what their really health issues are. That is tuberculosis, gangrene, hepatitis, heart failure, varicose veins, thrombosis, and other diseases which can pose threat for life. They don't have the resource for life. They have the critical state. Every exchange is taking place under the decree of the President of Ukraine. So we went to the presidential office for multiple times to meet with their head as for the comeback of the Marines from Mariupol city, to be heard not only by the representatives of coordination staff, but also by the government. But unfortunately, we did not get any response as well. Yulia, you said about ICRC. Undoubtedly, according to the information of ICRC, about 800 Marines were captured when they were leaving the city. Is it confirmed by your information? And secondly, how many people, Marines, were in captivity? As of today, we cannot confirm this information, because getting into captivity of Marines, there was more than 1,500. As of today, only 287 people came back. Thank you. Thank you so much. Tetyana, I would like to talk to you now. Let us talk about the statistical data of POWs. What is taking place? What do we know according to the outcomes of your research? Because we understand that you are working with the families and relatives of the POWs on a permanent basis. What information do you have? And why the defenders of Mariupol, as the relatives say, feel such a cruel treatment, according to your information? Thank you so much. Let me try to speak in a nutshell, and maybe I will even repeat rather obvious points. But since they got captured, the first Ukrainian military after the beginning of the full-scale invasion, there have been more than 2 years already. So maybe someone has forgotten what really took place and how it took place. Let me remind you. Today we are speaking mostly about the defenders of Mariupol city, about the Marines. Bigger part of them, since the first days of the full-scale invasion, were almost fully surrounded in the city of Mariupol. Let us not remember how they were moving through the city, what the conditions were, but still let me remind that we know about 3 big episodes when a big number of Ukrainian military, in particular Marines, were captured. The first episode is the beginning of April, when from Mariupol city, the factory and the surrounding area of the factory named after Ilyich, the 250 military of the 501st Separate Battalion of Marines were captured. We researched this, investigated this case. Another case is the factory, Ilyich factory, the 12th and 14th April, when there were also several thousand military captured, in particular Marines as well. And the third case is Azovstal factory, May 2022. All of these episodes had Marines taking part in them. In fact, after they were captured, the Marines were in bigger groups in different locations and detention centers. Partially, they were on the occupied area in the colony of Olenivka. We also know that a big group of Marines were brought to Bryansk Novozybki village, that is detention center number 2 first, then they were relocated to Tula region, Donske, then to Pakino partially, of Volodymyr region, and also Mordovia part. And also partially they can be found in Taganrog of Rostov region. And now we also have a big number in Horlivka, if I'm not mistaken, at the occupied area. Some of them are brought to the detention center of Donetsk city. Halich, yes. To the detention center of Donetsk city, when the law enforcement of Russian Federation are trying to find certain so-called evidence of their taking part in crimes which they try to indict to POWs. Now we are speaking not about 1,500, but a bit more, because now we are speaking about 3 cases about sea infantry. Really, as for the defenders of Mariupol, the attitude of Russian Federation is rather cruel and harsh. I named the colonies where they are staying, the conditions at these colonies, in all of the places of detention, in fact. Those conditions are rather awful. Since the very beginning, we are saying that when on the territory of the country we have the international armed conflict, it only means, when the war is ongoing, it means that the military of both sides can be captured. And detention of the military in captivity is not a crime. So both sides have the right for that. Why does it take place? So as we could decrease the defense capacity of each of the sides. And for that, the military are being captured. But if the military is getting captured, then there are certain rules or regulations of keeping in captivity. And Russian Federation does not comply with any rules as for the detention of citizens of Ukraine in captivity. Because if we look really at the citizens of Russian Federation, Russian POWs, the military, who are on the territory of Ukraine in captivity, they are kept in separate institutions, not just close to Ukrainian, for instance, convicts. They are given sufficient food. They are even organized some of the pastime. They have the right for communication with the relatives. And their detention is the information which the ICRC gets. The Ukrainian side complies with the rule that capturing the military can decrease the defense capacity or the opportunity of offensive of the country which is an aggressor. What does Russian Federation do? Russian Federation captures Ukrainian military, and their attitude is as if they are trophies. This is my trophy, I can do whatever I like. And their attitude towards them is as if they are the criminals. Because we know that those colonies or detention centers are acting colonies. So the Ukrainian POWs, first of all, are kept together with the Russian convicts, maybe in different rooms, but still chambers. They are using their own rules and regulations against Ukrainian POWs. Whatever was said about tortures, it's also done not only with the hands of the Russian structures, but also by the convicts. So Russian Federation has such the right for violence. But why does it have such a right for violence as it considers? Because there is no control at all. If on the territory of Ukraine the detention center can be visited by the representatives of the International Committee of Red Cross and other representatives of humanitarian missions, these detention centers and colonies are not visited by any observers. And if such international observers are getting there, that is to show an imitation of actions, to look and to meet with several military, so as later in their reports, in particular to the donors, they could inform that they visited such places of detention. In one of the latest surveys, we were said that yes, in one of the detention centers, ICRC came. We were brought to the room.
Ми нічого сказати не могли.
But we couldn't say a word because the representatives of the colony were sitting with the body cams close to us, and we were just documented that we exist, and that's it, as if we are in the normal state. So, coming back to the question of sea infantry, really, the majority of sea infantry and marines are moving through different places of detention. That is when this is a very cruel process of getting to a new place, when they are beaten, tortured, when electric shockers are used, because the newcomers are always getting cruel treatment. This treatment is cruel because they know that they are defenders of Mariupol city, whether this is the officer or a soldier, or some commander who could be responsible for something. They are still being severely beaten. They are constantly searching for some evidence to prove some blame of all of the military. And how do they search for that? That means that they are being interrogated, and those interrogations are really cruel. In Taganrog city, they have special rooms, torture chambers, where the Ukrainian military, in different way, are being tortured. They are hung to the ceiling. They use electric shockers, rubber sticks. So the system is targeted to beat out the confession of such military, the defenders of Mariupol city. We can assume that it is taking place because Russian Federation wanted to conquer Mariupol city, was attacking the city, and the civilian population was affected by that. Russian Federation obviously can search for so-called evidence that the Ukrainian side was committing certain crimes in Mariupol. So when we are speaking about the court proceedings or indictments, they are really multiple against the defenders of Mariupol city and Marines. And we know that as soon as sea infantry got to Novosibkiv, they instantly had really meticulous treatment by the law enforcement, so-called law enforcement authorities of Russian Federation. They were instantly being interrogated as witnesses, or they were added to some criminal cases and proceedings. And those military who were taken in Kiev region, they were asked, what do you know about Mariupol? They said, we are in Kiev region, we don't know anything, then we are not interested in you. It does not mean that they have been released or exchanged. No, it never happened like that. But the sea infantry, the defenders of Mariupol, are interesting for Russian Federation, and this is how they excuse such a long detention and such treatment. Thank you. Unfortunately, the microphone is not used. Unfortunately, the microphone is not used. I would ask our team to provide the microphone because unfortunately we are working with simultaneous interpretation and we have foreign journalists. So as you could be heard, please use the microphones. Olena, please, the floor is yours. Hello, everyone. I would add to the words of Tetyana. As for the number of what you mentioned, 1,300 of the military, who are now captured from the 36th Brigade. We have also the separate 501st Battalion and other units of the 36th Brigade. Analyzing the speeches and the statements of the representatives of the families and knowing the most cruel treatment with the POWs from the Marines, and looking at the statistical data and information which we can see as human rights activists, which we get from the relatives and from the open sources, that the tortured bodies are brought back, and half of them are Marines. That is the 36th Brigade of the Sea Infantry and 501st Battalion. So mostly they come back from the same detention centers what were mentioned, where they have the cruelest conditions. Unfortunately, the bodies are in such a state that our expert institutions cannot always find out the cause and effect connection. Very often they mention that the cause of death is a disease, but in fact maybe it has become the last point which led to the lethal consequences. We as human rights activists are trying to take all the expertise and forensic research in these cases as much as possible to document those atrocious crimes committed by Russia. We understand what was mentioned by Milana, that the time is against us and against the bodies of the POWs, and the conditions and the tortures against them and the malnutrition, unfortunately, can lead to the increase of the number of bodies which will be brought back from captivity. We are happy to see every release when we see about the defenders of Mariupol city, but unfortunately the 36th Brigade and the 501st Battalion are not that frequent in exchanges. We can even count on the fingers of one hand how many people were brought back and we could communicate with them. The court proceedings, which Tetyana mentioned, are deteriorating their state because the verdicts, however, our authorities are saying that this verdict is not the point which would allow to release them. Definitely, it is making this process much more complicated, the process of the comeback. So after the verdict is taken, the regulation is taken, they are being sent for so-called punishment in the certain colonies, and we don't always know anything about them, the information where they are and what's their state. The state of the guys who got these court rulings, and of course their health deteriorates. So this is the topic which needs to be highlighted and supported, and we don't have to be silent. We need to speak out about that, because this situation unfortunately will not improve. We don't know how many POWs of the Marines of the Sea Infantry who we are speaking about, who were confirmed by ICRC, are still alive and captured. Because this confirmation is taking place only statistically, without physical visit of the representatives of ICRC, only through the lists. And then the person is becoming confirmed. Whether the person is alive, what's his or her state, nobody knows. The families who are getting the bodies of the deceased, and what the experts find out, that the people die in captivity a year ago, half a year ago, so in some time. That is why Russia is on purpose bringing the bodies back, to make the cause and effect connection impossible. Russia, with these crimes and these sham courts, is trying to support the message which it bears, that those are Nazis which are killing the civilians. Especially we can see that about Mariupol city, where unfortunately many civilians died. And it's obvious that the easiest for them is to accuse the Ukrainian military on that. In this situation, the Marines, the Sea Infantry. That is why trying to influence somehow and to improve this percentage of the release of the military would be the best, especially those who are in the very bad physical state, because the severely injured and sick need to come back without any restrictions. This burden is on the shoulders of ICRC, and they don't want to take this burden, to take the severely injured and sick people back. So this is the topic which needs to be highlighted further on to search the ways how it should be settled. Thank you. The question to the human rights activists and to the relatives of the POWs as well. It's hard to speak about any specific steps which may help the ones who are now captured, but I'm sure that you're all working on that a lot. Definitely, so as these steps could be found. If you have some ideas, what does the state have to do? Maybe what we should do as the civil sector, maybe the media, so as that could become possible, to come closer to the moment when our defenders are coming back to us. Who is ready to answer? From my perspective, only very substantial and painful measures against civilians of Russia can help. I think that these measures have already started. For instance, the American company Holy has prohibited to bring their products to Russia. That is, the highly purified insulin. Russian insulin is of a different quality, of course. And the diabetes sick people don't want to get it for free. They would like to get, even for money, but purified insulin, which is helping them. I think that the international organizations which are supplying any humanitarian aid to Russia have to stop doing that. I understand what I say. We still have non-combatants, medics of the 36th Brigade captured. We still have the orchestra of the 36th Brigade. Let me repeat, they are civilians, they are non-combatants. A huge number of civilians who have never been registered or documented, let alone the 36th Brigade. At least it is listed. And we know the surnames, and we are trying either to find them or to prove their death or the captivity. But civilians are approximately 20,000, according to the approximate estimates. Russia affords itself to violate the humanitarian law, and I think that, as a response, we have the opportunity to violate the humanitarian law as well. And I understand what I say. Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else want to say anything? Our position is the following. First of all, we need to stop the calls of the Russian POWs to their relatives. We just should prohibit the phone calls. We should close this access, because according to the Geneva Conventions, they have the rights for letters and cards. It is not mentioned that, yes, we understand that we are living in the 21st century, but still we, the Ukrainian relatives, don't have the right for a phone call or a postcard or any letters, when the Russian POWs have this right, and then they even do video calls. So technically, we are not violating anything. Yes, technically, we are not violating anything, because according to the Geneva Conventions, that is done at the discretion of the state where the POWs are kept. So technically, we wouldn't violate anything if we would not allow them the phone calls. And as for what media could do and the civilians could do, first of all, they could go to the in fact, strikes, and to highlight the topics of Mariupol garrison, in particular the sea infantry. Thank you. Dear colleagues, maybe you've got any questions, please, or any comments. I am the mother of the Marine of the 36th Brigade. Honestly speaking, I don't think that in 2 years of our meetings and strikes they gave us anything. I'm visiting the coordination staff headquarters for 2 years, and I sent the letters to all of the governmental institutions. All of my letters get the automatic responses, and they don't provide me any information. I have 3 or even more folders of such letters without any specific response. I'd like to speak to the government and first of all to our guarantor, to the presidential office, to the president himself. What has been done during these 2 years for the 36th Marine Brigade, for the defenders who were defending Mariupol city since the first days? They were defending, they were standing there and for so many years, and they knew that. You just said that her son was losing 30 kilos of weight in captivity. My son in Mariupol city was already 50 kilos of weight. My child with no cheeks at all, and they had to eat only once a day, half a glass, 50 grams, and they didn't have any ammunition on them. I would like to speak not only to the media, but I would like to speak next time directly to the president, to Mr. Yermak, and to all of the international media, so as I could get a response. While Mariupol was defended in the beginning of April, on the 4th of April, we didn't have any connection and there were no ammunition. Miss Vereshchuk then was appointed. They didn't have a coordination headquarters or any other officers like that, and I was told, you need to wait a bit. We cannot just storm in 150 kilometers. So they were defending and standing till the last. And I don't have any response from the governmental officials. Secondly, to Mr. Lubinets, he went to Turkey for more than once. He was speaking to Ms. Moskalkova and other government officials, and they were assured that 800 or maybe even more people will be released because they are severely injured, but it never happened at all. Our guys severely injured and wounded, and for 2 years we are just forced to go through those circles of hell through the offices, and we don't get any specific response. This is the shame for our government, and distrust to the presidential office, distrust to the coordination headquarters, and distrust to Mr. Lubinets and other authorities. I do apologize for my words. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Please, dear colleagues, if you've got any questions, please. Hello, Mariana Bohan, TSN 1+1 channel. I have a question to Olena Belechkova and maybe to Tetyana Katrychenko, and also to you. I do apologize, I didn't remember your name. Yes, to you. Hanna, and to Hanna, please. So first of all, to Olena. You were speaking about the bodies. As far as I understand, people think that when the bodies are coming back, those are the bodies of those who died or perished at Azovstal factory or in Mariupol city, when we are speaking about the defenders of Garrison Mariupol or the factory named after Ilyich factory. So besides the bodies, we are also given the bodies of those who have to be captured. If it is true, if you have such information, what's the change in the statistical data? How many bodies of the defenders who used to be captured are brought back to Ukraine? Who should have taken back alive, maybe not healthy, but still alive? And a question to Hanna, just a clarifying question. Many times I heard the phrase that there is no connection, but you were the only one who said that you can write letters to your husband, and he is writing back to you. How do you do that? How do you cope to get to know about his state, about his health? Thank you. So let me start. My husband is being convicted, and Russia has the website how the relatives can communicate writing letters to with the convicts. As he is considered to be a convict, I found the way out, so I'm writing him letters since the middle of May. Olena? Yes, you're totally right when you said that the bodies from the detention centers, from the colonies, are sent back. the people who were confirmed by ICRC. So the confirmation of ICRC is never a guarantee that the person can still be healthy or moreover alive. So according to the statistical data, maybe some of the authorities can confirm it because they are dealing with the comeback of the bodies, that is the coordination stuff. But we get the information from the families and from the open sources, and also from the released POWs, documenting war crimes and questioning the released military or civilians. We are always asking, do they know anything about the cases of death in captivity? Some of them know that people in neighboring chambers were dying without identifying who they were, whether they were civilians or military, moreover, whether they belonged to any brigade. Then there were, in fact, statements that they knew someone personally, and then the body of this person was brought back. So as for statistical data, what we conduct internally, that is our own registration and documentation, that's about 22 cases which we know about of bodies of the captured people. Other relatives of the POWs say that there are about 160 cases like that. And from the last exchange, they also said that again, the coordination staff told us that there were 4 bodies of the captured brought back to Ukraine. I would like to clarify that a bit, to make it more specific. I understand that statistical data, it cannot be full, but still, maybe from exchange to a next exchange. If they first exchanged bodies, those were the bodies of the defenders who died in battle, and now we have more and more. Can you just compare the dynamic? Out of what we got to know recently from one of the NGOs and the community of the families, we had the indicator that in April there have been 11 bodies from captivity. And to find out what is taking place when this was the body exchange from this or that colony or from this or that detention center, it is impossible. So if they're just brought back from Russia, that is from Russia and that's it. The coordination staff says that those are mostly the ones who were captured already in the very severe state because of the injury, and they did not reach the detention center. They died on their way. But there are cases when the bodies are brought back from the colonies or detention centers. This figure is well said by the families that it's truthful that on the 26th of April, 11 bodies from captivity were brought as well. But the process of identification of bodies is lengthy, as well as forensic process. Unfortunately, it's very lengthy in Ukraine, from 6 to 8 months. So the families can get the information about the DNA coincidence. If you cannot provide the classic identification DNA match, only after all of the forensic and repetitive forensic DNA match expertise has to be conducted. So the families can get to know that a relative unfortunately died in captivity only in some time after the body of this person is already in Ukraine. It happens that the process is becoming known before that, because the body can be identified visually. Communicating with such families, there are cases when the body was brought back in October, November last year, but still they have some of the expert researchers. We understand that they have to be done fully and properly after getting all of the tests to have the evidence of war crimes on the death of the military in captivity, to further transfer this information to the international court and the verdicts for that. Milana, you wanted to add anything about the statistical data? Yes, it turned out that I was present at the committee of the parliament, and Mr. Mosso was speaking about that. He provided this information. 176 bodies were brought back from captivity since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. And this information about 11 bodies is true as well. He confirmed that as well. Out of this 176, he did not mention that, but he said that about 80 are confirmed by ICRC. Those are the people who 80 families were totally sure that nothing would happen to them. They are alive because the Red Cross is controlling that. It's not true. So, formally speaking, the family knows as of May or June 2022 that their relative, their son, their brother, their husband is captured. ICRC confirms this information. The people are waiting for the exchange from the captivity, but finally they get the body. Do I understand it correctly? Finally. Can I add, please? Out of 176 bodies, partially those were the bodies from Olenivka colony after the explosion. More than 50 bodies, which are not in our statistical data, what Elena mentioned. Our statistics, our figures are those military who we knew that they were under detention in captivity, and then we had some of the evidence that they are being tortured, and then we got to know that this person unfortunately was brought back as a body. Please. Hello, I'm Christopher. I have a question. Two questions.
Side treatment, especially high-quality treatment, like you were talking about, heart conditions, etc., that require more. Do you need assistance beyond what Ukraine has? And do you have other countries that are offering rehabilitation programs? Second question is also outside publicity from the media. Are we getting sufficient support from across the world to explain the current situation regarding the time, like you said, that it's dangerous to wait, and also about negotiations so that we can kind of sense what the world is doing? Дуже дякую.
Хто хоче? Питання.
The question was that whether you need support of the third countries so as this issue was solved. About rehabilitation, whether it is needed to involve other countries, so as those who were in captivity could get the opportunity to get proper rehabilitation, not only in Ukraine, and also in other countries. Do you need any support like that? And the second question was about the media. What else is needed to strengthen the international community and to understand, highlight the information, what is taking place with our POWs in the detention centers? I think that rehabilitation in other countries is needed because to recover, in my opinion, they need to be calm and quiet. As of now, it is impossible in Ukraine. We have permanent shelling, UAVs, drones, missiles, and so on. In other countries, guys will feel safer. And as for media abroad, I think that the whole world should know what Russian Federation is doing with our POWs. Could you add? As for the media and the and other partners' involvement for the exchanges, yes, we know that since the beginning of 2024, all of the exchanges which were taking place with Saudi Arabia only. If there is the opportunity to help our POWs to bring them to other country till the end of the combats, till the end of the full-scale invasion, we relatives, and I personally, as the head of NGO, we agreed for such situation if our relatives could be taken to a different country, as it happened with our commanders to Turkey, till the end of the full-scale invasion, so as they could stay in different centers in other countries with the proper nutrition, medical care, and comfortable conditions, not just to stand for 12 or 24 hours. So as they could have all the human rights as the legal POWs according to the Geneva Conventions. So I think the situation is that many relatives would agree with me. If our brigade would be brought from Russian Federation to another country till the end of the combats, are there any comments or questions? Can I please add, to conclude, maybe to make a certain conclusion, that the whole world, in fact, and in particular the American government officials and the commanders, they all understand that when the military are in captivity, it's not a crime, but the war crime is those atrocious, horrible conditions they are kept in. So the conditions of their detentions and the lack of the access of ICRC to these detention centers, the lack of control is the main reason. If the International Committee of Red Cross would be present there, if they created such conditions, which are created for Russian military on the territory of Ukraine, we would understand that these people can be kept with certain medical care, preserving their life till the end of the war, and then we wouldn't see such an issue. We would understand that all of them sooner or later will come back home. But now the question is that there is no access. Captivity does not guarantee that the person survives in captivity, because behind the closed doors there are scary things taking place. We are not only speaking about tortures, but the conditions of their stay there, of detention. Maybe they are not even tortured, but they don't give them enough food, and they don't give them the opportunity to breathe with fresh air. And some of the diseases can emerge in such detention center, like AIDS or tuberculosis. No one is trying to make the Ukrainian POW safe. So these conditions of detention lead to the increase of death or lethal cases in the captivity. After the first year of full-scale invasion, we didn't know about any cases of bodies brought back from captivity, because these were just separate cases, only several of them. When one person was severely injured when he was captured, and it was a single case, then the person was first kept at the occupied area, then brought to Russia, and then he died in one of the detention centers of Russia. They brought back the body. The identification of this body was taking place for too long, for almost a year, and then the family got to know that the body was brought back from the captivity. But now, in each of the body exchange, the bodies of not only deceased are brought back, but also the people who died in the detention center. And Russian Federation is trying to do whatever is possible to look at, to hide the reason of death. And the reason of death can be either excessive torture, because this military of the 501st Battalion of Boshko was really severely beaten. They deprived him of sleep for several days. They forced him to stand. So they created such conditions on purpose, so as he would confess in something and showed who else was to blame for that. He was tortured on purpose in a certain chamber in the colony in Tula region of Russia. And then we got to know that his body came back. And another reason is the diseases, the exhaustion, which were mentioned by Milana. Thank you, everyone. I have a question. I'm interested in the following. There should be some decision. If we are all here, as for the 36th Brigade, I hear from all the time that at the international level, they raise the issue of POWs, but then it vanishes. Some political meetings are over with the issues of exchange of POWs. We are waiting for those exchanges, and they never take place. They say that the Russia is to blame for that. And another question, I'm interested that even Mr. Budanov, the head of the main intelligence department, wanted the exchange all for all. But we don't see these exchanges. We don't see any released people. And there is no political will to gather at some level to provide the support from any other side so as the whole world would announce that Russia is a terrorist state. It shouldn't be just named as a special operation. It's a global extermination of Ukrainians. This is the real war. Let me end with the last point. The exchange all for all can be heard very often, but it is hard to do because Ukraine itself doesn't have 100% of registration and list of all of the military and civilians who are on the territory of Russian Federation, because as we said, even the Russian Federation does not confirm the presence of some of the military in the captivity, and they are considered to be missing for a long time. In some cases of exchanges, the military are brought back and we didn't know about anything about them. So the state can create such a verified registration of POWs and follow the movement of those military throughout the territory of Russian Federation. And when there is the moment that we need to bring back all of them, we should know where they are at. That is so important. I can't say that this is a PR, but still this is the mission to accomplish, but it is very hard to accomplish it. And as for the negotiations and talks on the exchanges, they are permanent, they are not public, with the involvement of different countries. And the fact that they are taking place is already good for many families, and a very big advantage for Ukraine. As you said, Russia is a terrorist country. It is hard to expect that it will comply with certain norms and regulations. What we can do, that is to register them, to document, to find them, and to verify the ones who have health issues, first of all, any traumas or injuries got in the battlefield, and also the diseases during the detention. And during the exchanges, it is possible to register. When they are coming back, they are telling who was close to them, what was taking place with them. And the country can create certain lists, which were mentioned by Milana, when they said that you need to bring back the ones who was staying in captivity for a long time, considering the conditions which exist there. Thank you everyone for this conversation. It is a very hard one, but so important for all of us. Thank you to our speakers who are here today, and thank you everyone who is present personally. Really, we hope that we will find the solution which is needed to all of us, and that we and all the relatives will see our relatives, heroes and defenders from the captivity. Thank you. We'll go on working for our victory. Glory for Ukraine.